Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Well, here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, and welcome to a very special edition of Primetime Sports. Hey, I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and I cannot wait for this show to get started. Hey, but first off, I want to send prayers to the grandmother of Noel Narcisse, the LSU quarterback. He was supposed to be on this show today, but his grandmother, Irma Jasmine, who was rushed to the emergency last night in Thibodaux, well, Lowell, like I said, he's a true freshman for LSU, was supposed to be here, but he's at the hospital taking care of his grandmother. Good job, Lowell. That is a good boy. So we'll have him on future show. Looking forward to that as we do. Hey, but we do have a Saints legend, a huge legend in my opinion, one of the top 3 or 4 players in Saints history in my opinion, and he is a former NFL defensive MVP. He started in 5 Pro Bowl games, part of the famed, obviously you know it as the Dome Patrol with Ricky Jackson, with Vaughn Johnson and the late Sam Mills. His name is Pat Swilling, and I cannot wait for him to be here. He was the sack master. He had 33.5 sacks just over a 2-year stretch back there in the early 90s. He is fantastic. He's going to be here as well. Hey, by the way, Tulane head coach Willie Fritz will be making his 3rd appearance here on Primetime Sports. I cannot wait for that. Willie's going to talk about his team going from year 1 to year 2 and the players you need to look forward to for the Green Wave this season. And don't forget, we'll talk about the Angry Wave as well. Looking forward to that. Lots of news going on this week. Some good, some not so good. And we'll start with the not so good. Hugh Dirty Dog. That's right, Hugh Freeze. Man, he has already been in a lot of trouble with probation looming. Obviously, they got caught up in some cheating, which a lot of the SEC schools seem prone to do. But he was about to have some major trouble with the NCAA, but it was found out that he was dealing with an escort service, so that last straw off the camel's back broke, and he is out at Ole Miss. He resigned, but guess what? A guy named Matt Luke is the interim coach as we speak, but there's a guy out there that people in the Bayou know very well. His name is Les Miles, and he has made it clear that he is not just interested, but the quote is very interested in going up to Oxford to be their next coach. And I find it kind of humorous because that is the scene of probably his biggest mistake as a coach ever, the clock management situation, which he had tons of problems with at LSU. But the one that was most glaring was in 2009 against those same Ole Miss Rebels. And how interesting would it be if LSU had their 2 former national championship coaches that are still alive, Nick Saban and Les Miles, both not only just coaching the SEC, but coaching in the same division over there in the West. That would be some drama. I would love to see it. Hey, by the way, Saints training camp begins this week. I know you know that already. Remember, you had to get tickets because they're free, but you had to go online and get them. I know they're out for Saturday, almost out for Sunday, but you got, I think, 11 opportunities to see the Saints. But after 3 and 7 and 9 seasons at the Greenbrier, they're out. No more Greenbrier. They're back home in Metairie. They're hoping to change their luck a bit. If you take out Bounty Gate and the Greenbrier, I'm having fun with this. Well, the Saints have been in the playoffs every year with 13-3 record, 11-5, 13-3, and of course another 11-5 in 2014. Maybe, just maybe, they can get back to the playoffs. And barring some more injuries, I like their chances. They have a good shot at it. Let's switch gears though. The British Open, aka the Open Championship, they call that, the purists do, over there in England. Jordan Spieth, who led most of the way, he is that young American from Austin, Texas. Well, he played at the University of Texas. Well, he lost the lead on Sunday to Matt Kuchar with a bogey on 13. It looked like he was going to fall apart like he did in the Masters a couple years ago. But he proceeded to birdie, eagle, birdie, birdie, birdie to win the tournament, and he became only the 8th golfer ever to win the Masters, the U.S. Open, the British Open, and he's only 23 years old. Greatness is on the horizon for him if it's not already there. And oh, by the way, the other major was the PGA Championship, which he finished second in 2015. So he's almost got the Grand Slam already at this age, and I know he'll be going for that tournament coming up next soon. Hey, by the way, basketball news. We all heard it, but wow. Kyrie. What are you thinking, Kyrie Irving? He demanded a trade from the Cleveland Cavaliers. He wants to be a focal point of their offense, kind of like what Kobe Bryant did with Shaquille O'Neal, except he kind of forced Shaquille out of L.A. He's the one that stayed in L.A. He won a couple more titles himself. Well, be careful what you wish for, because the last time I checked, it was pretty cool to be playing with a guy named LeBron James, and pretty cool to be going to 3 straight NBA Finals. And oh, by the way, he won one of those. So we'll see if this goes through. He's got 3 years left on his deal, so I don't know how they can make this work. But life without LeBron could be very, very interesting in a good way and possibly even a bad way. But the best case scenario for him would be to somehow end up on this team right there, the San Antonio Spurs. That, to me, would be the best case scenario. He'd become the next Tony Parker and playing alongside some great players like Kawhi Leonard and possibly LaMarcus Aldridge, but you have to get to give, so they'd have to give up somebody to get Kyrie. So it might be one of those if they decide to go that route. Oh, by the way, let's switch gears to baseball. We're going across the board on this Open. LSU has lots of former stars playing in the major leagues right now. We'll add another one to that list as former Tigers center fielder and leadoff man Andrew Stevenson. Remember him? He had some great years with the Tigers as its leadoff batter and center fielder that could track down everything. He has got some wheels. Well, he made his major league debut this Sunday with the Washington Nationals. Congratulations to him. And oh, by the way, how cool would it be to play the outfield next to a guy in right field named Bryce Harper? And oh, by the way, they're nearly the same age, other than the fact that Bryce Harper has already been to 5 All-Star games. That, my friends, is incredible. Staying with baseball for a second, how about the Little League guys? I love Little League when I played it, and these guys that I'm about to talk to, they don't do much better than them. The Carrollton Boosters, 12 and unders. That's right, they went out of 104 teams that went up to where the Hall of Fame is in Cooperstown, New York. Well, they went up as the AC. Pretty darn good, but they took that another step forward. They won a couple games, and they won a tough quarterfinal game against the number 1 seed. That game was incredible. They won that one 7-6. Then they coasted in, winning the semis 15-0, the finals 8-0 after that. And congratulations to all these great young players that accomplished that. Out of 104, winning it all is quite the feat. Hey, Cade Anderson, I got to give special props to him, the pitcher right here. Big lefty, over 6 feet tall. Hey, at 12 years old, that's saying something. 5 innings pitched. He only gave up 1 hit and struck out 13. So 13 of the 15 guys he got out were by strikeout. And to put that into kind of in perspective, the Carrollton Boosters themselves hit over 500 for the week. That's pretty special when you can hold a team to only 1 hit in a situation like that with only 200-foot walls, by the way. Hey, and I can't leave out these other little leaguers too, because the East Bank All-Star, the boys and the girls, I got to give them both props because they this week won the Louisiana State Championship, and they're going to be competing in regionals in Waco and Portland, respectively. The boys go to Waco, the girls go to Portland to go to the Little League World Series. How great would that be in Williamsport, Pennsylvania? I love that logo. That is the epitome of it all right there. Cooperstown, phenomenal. Williamsport, the same. So that would be great for them. Also in baseball news, I got to give props to our Baby Cakes. They've been playing some good baseball, and they go back on the road tonight. But for the first time in 3 years, they threw back-to-back shutouts. So congratulations to the Baby Cakes, and we'll be talking more about them as they go along. But they are starting to get hot at the right time. Obviously, they're not going to be in the running for the playoffs because they started so slow, but it's nice to see you finish strong, and that's what they've been doing in the month of July. Hey, by the way, just told you this, Lowell Narcisse will not be able to come on this show. I had more tweets, retweets, likes, and loves when I talked about him being on the show than I've had in quite a while, so we're going to get Lowell back. Obviously, he is going to be competing with Danny Etling and, of course, the other true freshman, Miles Brennan, for that quarterback spot. All 3 of these guys, in my opinion, do some great things on the football field, and I believe the future is bright, particularly with Brennan and Narcisse. Also, don't forget this particular show. Like I said, we have the legend. His name is Pat Swilling, one of my favorite all-time football players, regardless of team. And Tulane Green Wave head coach, his name is Willie Fritz, and he's coming up next right here on Primetime Sports. Oh, welcome back to Primetime Sports. That was Mark Stone. Always love to hear the best blues guitarist in the city of New Orleans by way of NYC. Hey, by the way, we're going to have Willie Fritz, the head coach for the Tulane Green Wave, coming up. But right now, I have a special treat for you. As a teenager to college kid in the 80s, well, I shouldn't say that because Pat's only a year older than me. There's a guy named Pat Swilling that came to town in 1986, third-round pick, which these days would have been a second-round pick out of Georgia Tech. And little did we know that he would easily become one of the top 5 players easily in Saints history, and a guy that was the NFL defensive MVP in 1991. There was a 2-year stretch where this man had 33.5 sacks. And if you don't know football, let me just tell you this. That's good. That's real good. And one of the best sack masters in the history of the game, in my opinion. He left the game in the late 90s as the 12th most sacks. He had the 12th most sacks in NFL history, and he's still up in the top 25. And the rules are a little different now. Hey, but by the way, this is a guy that I feel strongly that should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, along with Morton Anderson, who is about to get inducted in a couple weeks, along with, of course, Ricky Jackson, his teammate and former Dome Patrol partner, and, of course, the great Willie Roaf. His name? Well, you know him. His name is Pat Swilling, and welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
And little did I know until we talked about it that I knew you went to Georgia Tech, and I know you're from Toccoa, Georgia, but I didn't know your roots in Atlanta were so strong. You've been here for 30 years, but you're going to have a little time in Atlanta as well.
Without a doubt. But my mother and my family are still there. But now I have Trey, my son, and Bruce, my 2 boys at Georgia Tech.
Yes.
They're freshmen. And we're so excited. The whole Georgia Tech nation is excited. I've been back there last 3 or 4 times with them and getting them acclimated to everything. But they're loving. They're in summer school now, and they're loving everything.
Well, it's a great town. I mean, first of all, New Orleanians, I know it's blasphemy to say Atlanta's a great town. It's a great place. I was there for 2 decades. But home is where my heart was, and I came back home, and I'm so happy to be home. But it's great. I wasn't going to start here, but let's start there. You mentioned your 2 sons. Right. They both played a brother, Martin, which has become a powerhouse, obviously, in the last several years. But Trey, obviously, is a cornerback. Bruce is kind of a guy that can play almost everywhere, Bruce Jordan Swilling. Right. You see them both right there. But talk about them as players and talk about them as your sons.
Well, I tell you what, Trey's come a long way. He really works hard. Bruce was always a natural athlete from day one.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just something special. Trey worked really hard to get his game where it is now. And, he called me last night, and he's sweating. I said, where you at, son? He said, I'm on the bicycle. He said, I'm training. It's 9 o'clock at night, and he's working out. But I really think
nice. That's nice.
It is. But he has such an upside. Georgia Tech love him. They got a 6'2" corner. They haven't had a 6'2" corner. They don't know how long. I was talking to the coordinator, Ted Roof. He's my best friend.
Ted's a great guy.
He is. Ted says, Pat, no longer, he says, no longer will I have these corners from Clemson throwing the ball over the top.
Right.
So he's excited about him. And Bruce, oh, my God.
Ted your teammate?
Ted was my teammate.
That's what I'm saying, because Ted was obviously the head coach for Duke for a while. He's been around the Georgia Tech family for a real long time. And I love this. My man's a businessman. He's a real estate man. He's making it happen. The phone is going off during the interview.
I meant to turn that thing off. But, Ted, Ruth and I have been friends since we were 15 years old. We played against each other. He was at Central Gwinnett. I was at Stevens County.
Yes.
So we played against each other, and we have been, he's like a brother to me.
Yeah.
That's why we're at Georgia Tech.
He's a good man.
Oh, Trey, he loved LSU. They loved USC.
Right.
Both of them. They wanted to go together.
Right.
He said, but I can't turn Coach Ted down. He
That's
came
his
in the
man.
room. He said, hey, man, Dad, we're going to Georgia Tech.
Listen, man, I actually really followed Georgia Tech a lot. I mean, to the point I took my kids when they were growing up. I couldn't make them Georgia fans.
Right.
It's not going to happen. I'm a LSU,
right.
and we're in the SEC down here, right? So I became a kind of a Georgia Tech pseudo fan, and we went to as many games as possible. I can tell you.
I visited. I took them to Georgia. I took Trey and Bruce to Georgia on a visit. They offered them.
I'm sure they did. Everybody
I had to
offered
take them, but I had to take them.
Yeah, you had to.
And I told my wife, I'm going to be quiet, let them do their thing. I mean, but I kept telling my wife, Lord, there's something about this, man. Just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
All that red, I'm just.
It's
I'm
too much
tech,
red.
I'm a Tech man, but it worked out.
Exactly. I mean, Tech is like, I don't think LSU has a rival like Georgia Tech.
Oh,
I mean, maybe Tulane back in the day, way before I was even born, they might have been something strong, but they don't. I mean, Alabama's a blood rival now, but Alabama's got Auburn. But this Georgia Tech, Georgia thing is brutal. And
it is brutal.
And I know my friends at Georgia, they don't like Tennessee, and they certainly hate Florida.
Right.
They have that big game, but they tell me that they want to beat y'all worse than anything.
Who is that, Tennessee?
No, Georgia.
Georgia, always.
They do not like to. They don't,
and I said
like
Tennessee
each other.
because we got them in the Chick-fil-A game first, so I know everyone's pulling for us to beat Tennessee, but that's going to be a well of a ball game in that new stadium too, so we're excited.
All right, Saints fans, we're going to get to Saints in a second, but since we're on Bruce, I got to talk about this because this guy is special. Yeah. I know Trey's a great cornerback, but Bruce is the guy that's been getting accolades for years.
Right.
You see him at the U.S. Army All-American game. This guy can do it all. What's he going to do at Georgia Tech? Is he going to play offense and be a mercurial runner like he's been at Brother Martin, or is he going to try to play both sides, or what?
Well, he told me about a week ago, he said he went up to Coach Johnson and asked Coach Johnson, he said, well, you think I can get a few carries? Coach Johnson said, well, you think you can carry it? He said, I can carry it. He said, Ted Ruth ran and pulled him, and guys said, get away from my guy. You're a linebacker. So he's going to play linebacker starting out,
all right, and
we'll see how that goes. But Bruce will be a great player, I think, in college and maybe on the next level. He has all the tools. He's 6'2", 220 pounds already. He runs like the wind. They timed him on turf at 4.39.
Yeah. This is not just dad talk, people.
No,
this is the real deal. Bruce, I called his game when he was a sophomore. He was the best player on the field as a sophomore in a playoff game. Okay, so this is not dad saying he might be on the next level. No, Bruce, barring injury, will be on the next level.
I think so, without a doubt, barring injury.
Right. And as far as your other son, he's strictly a corner. That's what he's going to play.
Well, they're thinking corner safety, but this year they're going to pay him at boundary corner just because everyone lines up their biggest receiver into the boundary and try to throw the ball over a short receiver. We got short cornerbacks, but Ted's keep telling me, no, that's over. So they're thinking boundary corner, and we'll kind of go from there.
All right, I have to say one last thing because it's kind of funny because I've watched them play basketball as well. I've watched them play other sports. They have a sibling rivalry because I'm just saying this. I've seen because Bruce has always been big brother in the sense he's bigger, stronger. Trey kind of grew into himself.
Right.
But these two, Trey does not back down from Bruce in anything. And have they gone at, because I've got two kids that are 17 months apart, right? And I've seen that go at it.
They went at it. You never heard the story over at Newman? They were in a tournament.
I don't know.
And Trey thought that Bruce threw the ball at him, and Trey threw it back at him.
Was this basketball?
And they got in the squabble in the middle of the game, and I had to run out there and ask them, what in the heck are y'all doing? And everyone's looking at us like, what is happening here? And I'm thinking, I asked my wife, what is happening here? But, hey, they go at it. But they're very competitive, and Trey pushes Bruce to be the best Bruce can be. Because Bruce is talented. And Trey is talented, but he'll take Bruce out, and they're going to run 5 miles, and Bruce is trying to keep up, and Trey is running his butt off. So they're good for each other.
I love this memorabilia room, man. I'm looking all around. I see Georgia Tech. I see some Saints stuff. I see, obviously, the kids. Are they going to be roommates there?
They are. They're already. They're in summer school. They've been there about 5 weeks. Their roommate, them and Ted. See, Ted Roos has a son there, too. He's a linebacker.
Yeah. Ted's son is?
And they're all the best of friends.
Yeah, and they have been for life probably, huh?
For life. So
yeah,
we turned them over to Ted. So now Ted has 3 sons there now.
Right.
So they're driving him crazy. So so they're looking forward to it. He loves it.
All right,
Ted loves it.
We're going to talk Saints. We're going to do 2 segments with him, but I want to get into something before we go take a break. The Saints have now 3 Hall of Famers. And for years and years, they had 0 Hall of Famers. And I remember Ricky got inducted about, 6-7 years ago, something like that,
right?
Into the Hall of Fame. And, of course, you were there, part of the Dome Patrol, and there's Big Rick. Rick was in New Orleans about 5 years longer than you, right?
Right.
And y'all both kind of left around the same time. But talk about playing with Ricky Jackson, because you two were as devastating. You were the guy that got a lot of the accolades, And Ricky seemed to do a lot of the dirty work, right?
He did.
And, but you guys were so much fun playing together.
Well, my career was getting started. Now, I was a little different player than he was. He had been established, but to play with a guy that has such insights and such instincts to teach you the game.
Yeah.
I mean, he taught me how to rush the passer. He taught me how to read stances. He taught me when the run was coming. You know, all those kind of things. And we became like brothers and very competitive brothers. I tell you, he worked harder in practice than he ever had. Because I came from Georgia Tech, and we had no choice. Bill Curry made us do that. So I was taught to do that. You know, they had talked about Ricky was kind of laid back in practice. Not in our practices. We worked hard. And he got better, and I got better. But it was a fun time for us and the things we used to do. And I tell you, to sit in a room on Monday, and you're sitting there with Sam Mills, Ricky Jackson, Vaughn Johnson, sitting in the room. We're looking at a film, and people getting 50 and 60 yards of total offense in one game or one half, and we're sitting there marveling at it. But our guys played well together, but Ricky was the glue that kind of held us together.
I mean, Ricky and you had a great relationship.
Oh, no,
I mean, I've
and
talked
we still
to Ricky
do.
about you. And tell people, because Ricky kind of can have that harsh look, but when you break him down, he's a big teddy bear. And I love Ricky.
Hey, let me tell you something. I love him. I love him.
Ricky Jackson.
He calls me often and tells me, he said, "How you doing?" We talk. He said, "Man, I want to tell you I love you." And I said, "I love you too." You know, we came a long way. We kind of grew up too, and went through, you know, all that where it's competitive, and then when it's over, we found a way to get back together and love each other. When I get 3 sacks and he got none, we figured it out. The next week he get 3, and so it balances stuff out. But we learned to coexist and be good at it.
Yeah.
And be real good at playing football. But he can be hard. But I'm going to tell you something. There's no better advocate for Pat Swilling in this Hall of Fame thing than Ricky Jackson.
Well,
he embarrasses me. I got to tell you this.
Tell me.
I went to the Sugar Bowl thing. The Sugar Bowl, my sons were there, and we're there for them and everything. And he starts his little speech, and he says, "I have to say something. That's the other Hall of Famer that should be in the Hall of Fame."
There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
And he goes on this tangent, and my wife's kicking me. Ricky, don't sit down. She's kicking me. I said, well, and I said a few words. I told him thank you, and I always do. And you know, it kind of is what it is. But he's the biggest advocate for me on this Hall of Fame thing.
Well, I was an agent, okay, so I know that it's hard to speak for yourself, and I'm going to advocate for you because this is a no-brainer. When you talk about Hall of Fame players, this is the way I look at it. Did you dominate during your period?
Right.
And there was no bigger dominator than you. You were an NFL defensive MVP, and you should have had at least 2 of those.
Right.
I'm going to say that. You should have had 2. And I think it gets overlooked because the entire Saints group, we all talk about them all starting together, the Dome Patrol in the Pro Bowl, which is a marvelous feat.
Exactly.
Sam Mills, phenomenal player. He's got a statue outside of Carolina. He's beloved in New Orleans. That's 3 of the 4. Ricky's not in that picture, obviously. That's Vaughn's 53, you're 56, and of course Sam 51. And I don't know
Benny
how
Thomas.
old
Benny. That's
and
Benny.
of course that's Benny. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, that was that particular year. But my point is that people seem to overlook it. And why do you think that is?
I don't know. I really, we hadn't figured it out. And my boys, Patrick and Bruce and Trey, I think they're more disappointed because they sit down and look at the numbers. The numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. And look, you never heard anything out of me because I thank the Lord for what he did and where he put me and my family. Hall of Fame, I love to be there, but it's not going to make and break Pat Swilling. So I'm not one of those guys going to get out there like T.O. and those guys and talk about it. He ain't heard me say a word about it. But I have better numbers than 5 guys that are there.
No, I know. I've done my research.
And I don't care how you break it down.
Right.
I don't care what time they played, when they played.
Right.
It is what it is.
Right.
And I think that's what that's why me and Ricky and guys are more disappointed about it because they think and I think I deserve it. There's no reason why. Hadn't been in trouble.
No.
State legislator. I did everything that you could do.
No doubt.
I mean, I don't
By
know
the
what
way,
else you can
don't give up hope, and I know you're not.
Well,
Ken Easley is your era.
Yes.
And he just got in.
Right.
So things can happen, and I really think
you don't want to hear the other side of it. I tell my wife, hope I ain't pushing up daisies.
No. We're going to come back because we're going to come back and we're going to get to the other side of it. This is Pat Swilling, and he's so good. We're going to do one more segment with him. Coming right back with the champion right here, the next Pro Football Hall of Famer right here. His name's Pat Swilling. Move right back on Primetime Sports.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. All right, we're picking up right where we left off right here on Primetime Sports. I got Pat Swilling. He is, of course, the Saints Hall of Famer, Louisiana Hall of Fame, and several Hall of Fames, but he really needs to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But before, I kind of cut you off because we had to take a break, but I have to bring you back. I think you're about to say, I don't want to be pushing up daisies when they finally induct me into the Hall of Fame, because we're talking about Ken Easley.
Right.
And tell me what you mean.
Well, I don't want to be gone from here.
You don't want to be dead.
Physically doing it.
Yeah, you want to be able to savor it, right?
Well, savor it and enjoy it. But,
right.
As I look at, Charles Haley and all these other guys that have gone in, and Charles is a great player. My number's better than Charles.
Yeah.
But Charles is in.
Charles has all the Super Bowls. And that's
Super Bowls, and that's what they look
thing.
at. But then again, you look at numbers and all of that. The people talked about the report that Charles had with the media. It was terrible. The thing is, there's nothing negative in my past.
There's none.
That should be a reason why I should not be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But, it is what it is.
The Super Bowl stuff bothers me in a lot of ways, particularly because, you play with three Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Right.
You had Troy Aikman in Dallas, and you had, of course, San Francisco's Joe Montana, and nothing against Charles Haley. This is just an example of one person, and they say, and I believe he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right, without a doubt.
But I certainly believe you should be too, and that's the problem I have with it.
I'll always come back to numbers.
Right.
I look at Andre Tippett and those guys. I mean, Tippett was a little older than me, but playing during the same time. Those guys' numbers aren't even close to
Not even
numbers.
close. But I'm going to go with the eyeball test, Pat.
He didn't win anything.
Off the ball, I have a sequence here, and this is a perfect segue to do it, of you playing against the 49ers. This is what I call an anatomy of a sack. That you just taking them on, okay, then you get the little swim boot, you use the arm, you're pushing them off, and then next thing you're on to the quarterback, see you later, offensive tackle. But you did this play in and play out. For me, the eyeball test, there was nobody quicker off the ball than Pat Swilling in the game, and I'm not saying that because you're sitting here. Well, I've said this till I was blue in the face without you here as well.
And we had a series of moves and things. I had a beautiful spin move back to the inside, uppercut, get off the corner and run. Me and Ricky worked on these things. I put my game up against anyone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you. Every time I see Kevin Green, he hugs me and says, your day is coming. Me and those guys used to meet at during the Rams game. He'd come over and he'd look at me and said, I'm getting 3. I said, oh, you won't need more than 3 today because we go get Jim Everett. My point is, we all competed. Even Lawrence Taylor, all of us competed. And that's why I think all of our numbers, you look at that group during the 80s, Lawrence numbers were good, Charles Haley, Chris Doman.
You're right there.
We're all right there.
We're going to make this happen. We're going to make this happen. This is the beginning of a push that's going to get bigger and bigger. The groundswell is going to grow. I have to talk to you about how special it was because you came in at literally the same time as when Tom Benson bought the team.
Right.
They hired Jim Finks, who turned the team around. And I know he's not popular with players because every last player I've had on here, from Morton to Bobby to Ricky, they all have an issue with Finks. But he did his job apparently.
He'd tell me every year, put the skins on the wall, I'll pay you. 15 sacks, 16 sacks, 16 and a half, 17 and a half.
Those are a lot of sacks.
Never paid me. Every year. I mean, the numbers on the wall, the body's on the wall, not just the skin. We used to laugh about it. Jim was tough.
Yeah, he was tough. And, sometimes you have to be fair to the player, especially when you're making promises.
Well, what just happened in Carolina, GM got fired.
Right.
But you're right.
And those players were all rejoicing.
Yeah,
particularly the former ones like Steve Smith in particular.
Yeah.
Hey, and D'Angelo Williams
right.
wasn't very happy about it either.
Those guys.
But also, I got to bring up the fact that Jim Mora and you came at the same time.
Right.
Jim Mora obviously did some great things. You guys, there was 0 winning seasons, 0 playoffs, and all of a sudden you're winning 12-3 in the straight year.
He instilled the discipline that you needed to win in New Orleans. That's the only way I can put it. And the best thing for me is I came from Bill Curry. Bill Curry was a coach who believed in discipline.
And the Bear Bryant. He's from Bear Bryant's
right. In Georgia Tech, a discipline school, academically, athletically, all those things. And I didn't know anything. Practicing 2.5 hours hard. Hey, when we got here, those guys looked at 2.5 hours. We're not practicing. Jim Moore would keep you out there 3 hours if he wanted to. He'd start it over. But his discipline with the talent he brought in made the difference.
Pat played 2 seasons with the Detroit Lions, 3 seasons with the Oakland Raiders. Was it LA Raiders back then?
LA Raiders, yes.
LA Raiders. But you left here in what year?
I left here in 93.
So you left when Willie Roaf got here.
I was traded. Well,
that was the pick they got Willie Roaf for.
If we had time, I'd tell you, but I didn't want to go.
Right.
But the only thing they said they had that somebody wanted was me. And it was Detroit wanted me, and they'd get Willie for the first round. They did Willie.
They got the pick, right?
I didn't have any. Yeah, they got the pick. So I didn't have any choice. I hated it. That was the beginning of the end of the Dome Patrol.
Sad.
It was.
And by the way,
I thought we'd play another 5 years together, and I can imagine the numbers we would have had if I could have stayed.
Let's put Mount Rushmore up, because this is my favorite when they show the Mount Rushmore. A lot of people go, who's your Mount Rushmore of Saints? And you know what? To me, name another group of starting linebackers that are as good or better than this group.
That has
some good ones.
That had 4. Nobody.
Well, there's certainly none with 4.
Everyone talks about New York's guys with Reasons but.
Well,
Reasons,
Lawrence Taylor, obviously, Carl Banks.
But Reasons couldn't hold Sam Mills'
Carson,
job.
too, wasn't he?
Carson was good. He's Hall of Famer.
Right,
Carson was a great player. That's Vaughn. But on the outside, Carl Banks was good.
Yeah.
Real good.
But Reasons brings it down a little bit.
He does. But I'll tell you something that really bothers me. I got to put this out. You might not know this.
No, tell me.
I just made the all-50 linebacker team. Did you know that? For the NFL. Gil Brandt came out with an all-50 team.
Nice.
I'm 43 or something like that. You look at all the guys in front of me, they're in the Hall of Fame.
All of them.
When I say linebacker, he's talking the whole group.
Yeah, all of them.
Inside, outside, everybody.
Everything.
How in the world can I be in the top 50 and not even be in the Hall of Fame or even be mentioned to go in the Hall of Fame?
We're getting there. We're going to get there.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
It makes me think I've done something wrong to the media or something.
But you're the nicest guy there's others.
And I'm still doing, I think, things in the community here in New Orleans, and, we're fine. I mean, I haven't. It makes no sense, It is what it is.
Oh, hey, listen, man, you're preaching to the choir right here. Hey, by the way, the other Hall of Famers, you have a connection to all of them. You played on the Dome Patrol with, obviously, Ricky. You were part of the trade that brought in Willie Roaf,
exactly.
Which is kind of ironic. There's only 3 here, and then Morton Anderson is about to be inducted. And I know you and Morton are very close. And he's only the second place kicker in NFL history to be in the Hall of Fame, the other being Jan Stenerud. But talk about your relationship with him as well.
That whole group, and Morton, it just he came down for the 50th that we had for the Saints, all 50 teams they had, and man, we had a blast. Him, Bobby, Ricky.
Oh yeah.
He had on a beautiful coat. I don't know if you saw the coat he had on. It was about 150 colors, and we laughed.
Yeah.
He put the coat on me, and it came up, and we just had a great time. But that whole group, and Morton included, we were just a close group of guys, and that's why we were good during that era. I mean, there was a lot of fights in the locker room, but there was a lot of love in the locker room too. But Morton and all those guys meant so much. We all meant so much to each other. And man, we played like a team during those times. When we lost, we hurt, and we win, we had a great time. But that was the best time of my life here with the Saints. I had a great time. Al Davis and the Raiders, a great organization, but the Saints and the camaraderie and the people here, I had a great time here.
How great would it have been? Because, I mean, the offense was good when they played with you. Listen, I'm not going to get into that.
I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
No. But, because Dalton Hilliard, to me, is one of the greatest running backs in history we have here. Eric Martin, certainly one of the greatest receivers. Bobby Hebert.
And we love Bobby, but Bobby's
winning percentage is still better than anybody that's ever played in black and gold, and that includes Drew. But this offense, which has never been really below 5 in 10 years, like in the league, and usually it's first or second, and your defense, and I'm just dreaming here, people. I know you can't have it all. How many rings with this? Hold up.
And one on the toe, I think.
Because they're looking for defense.
Oh, man.
And they haven't had a defense lately that's been ranked above, in a good way, 30th. I think in 2014.
And I'll tell you something, too. A player here or there in the defensive back scheme of things, with our defense, we could play with any offense that they have these days.
Right.
Because we can get out to the passer.
Yeah.
Saints' biggest problem is they can't rush the passer. Can you imagine our ability to rush the passer the way they throw the ball right now?
We were so spoiled. I mean, you guys got to the quarterback.
No.
If it wasn't you, it was Ricky. Are you getting the inside pressure? You had the Frank Warrens and Jim Wilkes. I mean, these guys are a beast.
Jimmy, I mean, we
Look at this. By the way, Vaughn Johnson is here next week. You got any words for Vaughn?
I mean, man, words. I love him. I mean, he was my running mate.
He was a thumper.
People have no idea. As many times I look inside and say, Vaughn, I'm gone. He said, what? He said, go, I got you. And if that ball got ran inside, he had to take on two and make a tackle. But most of the time, he had me, and that was just something special. That's special. He could take on two blocks and still get outside and make a play, man.
So you're a real estate developer, but you've been in politics. What gave you, the calling to go into politics? What was the final thing that said, hey, man, this is something I want to do?
Well, I lived out in New Orleans East, and my goal was to try to help the New Orleans East area grow. After the storm, I was there before the storm. I lost that seat, and then I went back into private business. But my first goal with the Congressman Cedric Richmond, who was the state representative, was to try to rebuild New Orleans East. And we came a long way, and there's still a lot of work to do out there. But that's the reason I got involved. I enjoyed it. It's tough. Politics is tough. And I got to a point where I felt like I wanted to get back into private business. That's why I've never ran again. But I enjoyed my time, and I thought we started to make some inroads out there. But there's still a lot of things to be done.
You're the best, Pat.
Thank you. Thanks
Put this guy. He's in just about every Hall of Fame known to man in Louisiana and Georgia and everything else. It's time to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I truly believe that's going to happen. Hey, I'll soothe your pain with a little $50 over there at a place called Shays de la Shays. It's uptown it's on Maple between Carrollton and Broadway. Bring your wife. It's a wonderful place. We have a tradition. Bobby Hebert took up our whole ball just about.
Oh, Lord.
But find us a good
I'm
spot.
going to sign on top of Bobby.
Sign over Bobby. Give me one right there above the Saints. This is Pat Swilling. And make it so I can read it in a couple years.
I'll do that.
Some people just put a scratch. I'm go home. I'm like, who the heck is that? Hey, by the way, want to mention again, Lowell Narcisse could not be on the show today. He had to go take care of his grandmother, emergency situation where she had to go to the hospital last night. But that just gives us more time with my next guest. His name is Willie Fritz. He is the head coach for the Tulane Green Wave going into his second season and one of the most personable guys that you'll ever meet. He's coming up right here next on Primetime Sports. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. That was the legend, Pat Swilling. Of course, in my mind, I always put there's Ricky Jackson, there's Drew Brees, in whichever order you like. Obviously, Drew Brees won the Super Bowl. But right there in that next group, you got Willie Roaf, Pat Swilling, Morton Anderson, Archie Manning, whoever else you like. He's certainly one of the greatest players in Saints history. But now we're going to have a guy that I have grown to like. This is our third time in, I guess, a little over a year that the head coach of the Tulane football Green Wave has been on this show. His name is Willie Fritz, and I'm looking forward to this because we're not only going to talk about, hey, what's going on with the team, we're going to talk about what's it like living in New Orleans. Welcome back to the show, Willie.
Great to be on. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, you were on right after the season, and you were on, I guess, right after you had, not long after you had spring practice a year ago. But now that you've been here for a full year and a half, what are your thoughts about New Orleans? Because we talked about it after a little time, but you didn't have much time because you had the whole season that just ended. But now you've had literally 7-8 months since then. What's New Orleans like for you?
Well, I've had a little bit more time. There's a lot of work involved with turning the program around, but we really are having a great time. I'm here with my wife. We're empty nesters right now, and there's just so much to do in New Orleans, and I've lived in all these small college towns.
Right. That's why I asked.
Statesboro, Georgia.
Yep.
Georgia Southern, Huntsville, Texas, Sam Houston, and Warrensburg, Missouri, and Brenham, Texas, and I'm from Kansas City originally, which is about the same size as
Great city.
New Orleans,
Yeah.
but totally different. There's
Right.
not a whole lot of similarities between the two. And one thing that happened
Except
to me,
that
I put
they're
on
by the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
That's what.
well, a little bit further. That's over there in St. Louis.
Yeah.
But put on about 20 pounds, and I had to lose the 20 pounds after my first year. So we're having a great time.
What's your secret? Because I moved back from Atlanta and I put on 30, and I still haven't lost it yet. So I got to figure out your training regimen and get on it. You did mention you've been working. And what does it entail for the head coach at Tulane who's trying to get this thing turned around? Obviously, by the way, let me start this. A 4-8 season last year, taking over a program with a total different set of ball players than your program runs. I mean, but 4-8 could have easily been 8-4 because I went through the schedule. I went through every single game, and I said, man, that was one play away from being a win. I know there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but you're not that far away.
No, we weren't that far away last season. We had a couple fourth and shorts there at the end of the ball game. We converted. We end up winning the ball game. We don't. They go down, drive, and score.
I remember.
We got to get better. We got to finish. And that's something we've been talking about our guys since the end of last season. Finishing everything in the weight room, every class, every community service project, whatever we're involved in. Everybody does a good job starting things, but we got to do a great job of finishing. It's something I'll be talking about during preseason camp as well.
Well, that thriller, that game against University of Louisiana, they like to be called, but we like to refer to them just so we know who they are. UL Lafayette, was it like a quadruple overtime win?
Yeah.
That was a thriller. I remember being on the road with Tim Brando getting the score updates, and I kept saying, and finally when I saw the W, listen, I'm all about Louisiana Lafayette winning games, but you guys, you're in my hometown, and you got that victory. That had to be a big moment.
Yeah, it was a big moment for us. It was great to be able to close a game out like that, and big win for us. And then I was also very proud of our guys. The last ball game of the year, we went up to Connecticut.
Yes.
Neither team really had much to play for, and we really came out and played well in all three phases.
You whooped them.
Yes, we did. We played really well. I was proud of the guys. It was a cold day. The guys came out and took the challenge. Sometimes when teams from the South go and play up north and it's cold, they don't think the guys are going to be able to handle the cold, and our guys certainly did.
Well, I always get updates during games, even when I'm working games, just to see. I'm just looking during timeouts, and I'm like, that's what we call a double taker. Because I looked at the score, I'm like, wait up, what just happened right here? You were on fire that day.
Yeah, played really well on offense, converted a lot of third downs, and then defensively had another good ball game. Then made some big plays in the kicking game, blocked a punt and blocked a field goal. So it was a well-rounded game.
You make it sound so easy, but those things happen every game, and you're going 10-2.
Yeah, you really are.
I mean,
It's
said
difficult.
Good defense. Yeah. We converted third downs. We blocked the punter kick, and you wish that was happening every week. But let's talk about first of all, I'm seeing what you're wearing right there, and I'm jealous because I grew up as a New Orleanian, not far from the old Tulane Stadium, which is now where the new Tulane Stadium is. And we used to wear our Angry Wave T-shirts as little kids around. Look, I love the Angry Wave. Yeah. And I heard a comment the other day from A.D. Troy Dannon where he was being interviewed. He says, there's always stuff that goes on, but you're never perfect in anything you do. Obviously, some people hate it, some people don't. Whether you play baseball, you're not going to get a hit every time. But apparently, this Angry Wave is not just me loving it, not just the old-timers, but it's 100% approval, he said. And that's rare to get that in anything.
It really is. I've been surprised. Our players love it, the coaches, the fans, even the new fans.
Look at you. You're right behind
Yeah, there it is right there.
Right in front of it.
It's a great deal. I think Troy hit a home run with bringing that back, and I know the alums really enjoy it.
That flag is awesome. And look at the hat. I love the blue,
Yeah.
the blue color with it as well. It brings out the whole thing. Because back in the day, I know blue was prominent in the uniform, and they took it out for a while, and I know they brought some back. But it's always great. What you pulling out?
I got something for you
What?
right here as well.
What is that?
We brought that. And
are you kidding me?
I know you've been with the Green Wave for a long time, and just something to show our appreciation.
Look at this. Look at, and he got the size right. 5XL.
No.
No, it's not 5, just 2. But I do appreciate that. Is very sweet of you. Thank you so much, Coach.
You bet.
And I promise you, this is going to get warm this afternoon. And LSU fans, UL fans, I got T-shirts of y'all too. Now I have one for the Green Wave. I love it. Now I want to talk about this particular team coming in. Obviously, the biggest difference you're going to see is quarterback. You have a new quarterback that actually was a former Kansas State Wildcat. He's played some junior college ball. Let's just say he is very seasoned and very talented. His name is Jonathan Banks, and I'll let you take it from there.
Well, Jonathan went from Kansas State to Independence Community College and really helped turn that program around. They had a winning season, I think, in 10, 15 years, and led him to a winning season. He fits what we're doing. He's a dual threat quarterback, extremely strong arm, very accurate, and he's a big guy. He's about 6'2", 220.
Yeah, that's at 6'3". They gave him the extra inch,
yeah,
but
he's
that's
got
big.
great speed and really runs the ball with power. So we're looking forward to seeing him live.
Why is the quarterback so instrumental in your offense?
Well, it's instrumental in any offense, but for us, the guy's got to be able to do both. He's got to be able to throw the ball. Hopefully we run it successfully, and when you do that, it gives you a lot of man coverage out in the perimeter, and if the guy's got an accurate, strong arm, you get a lot of big plays. My last year at Sam Houston, I believe we had 35 touchdown passes, and I think 18 of them were 50 yards or more.
Wow.
Because everybody just gets up and
they
plays
bunch
it.
up, and you can hit him with the deep ball.
It's we're looking forward to seeing what he can do in this offense.
Yeah, Georgia Tech was doing a lot of that. I remember like Demarius Thomas. They'd run. All of a sudden, you see like 4 catches for 220 yards. They just hit him deep every time they could when they weren't running the ball. But speaking of runners, you've got a couple guys that I think have been around since the Bush administration, particularly Sherman Beatty from John Curtis and, of course, Dontrell Hilliard, part of that great Hilliard family. Talk about with these two guys, their experience, their talents will bring to the Green Wave in year number 2 for you.
Yeah, they both have got very good size. They're 200, 205 pounds. They can do everything. They can block, which some running backs are not real fond of, but those guys do a good job blocking. They're both great receivers. And then running the ball, they can run inside. They can run the ball in the perimeter. We just timed guys yesterday in 40s, and they both, we do laser timing, and when you converted, they both ran 4.41. They ran exactly the same time.
Wow.
So great speed as
well. By the way, both great speeds.
Yes.
4.41 for a running back.
Excellent. I know everybody says they run 4.4.
Yeah, right.
They come and play for me, and usually it's 4.8, 4.9.
Right.
So
and you got
these guys legit run 4.4.
Yeah, you actually had the stopwatch.
We actually have gone to where we use a laser, so there's no human element involved.
It's the laser.
And great job.
I was being facetious. I knew it was a laser. Maybe. By the way, you talked about receiving out of the backfield. How important is that for your offense, for the running back to be able to catch the ball?
Well, the guy can do that. We need to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And I've had some years where our running backs have led us in receptions. And the thing when I talk about those guys being able to catch a ball, it's not just out of the backfield. They can go ahead and line up as a split end. And now you're getting multiple formations with the same personnel grouping. And, a lot of times you got 2 backs back there, and there's only so many formations teams get into. With these guys, their ability to block and catch a ball and flex out, you can run a lot of different formations.
Tulane has had a lot of running backs go in the NFL, a lot. I mean, for a smaller school, certainly per capita, as they say, a bunch. But you've also had some great receivers at Tulane over the years. Ryan Grant's now at the Redskins, and he's been around, but you have another one I think's got some really, really sticky fingers, Taron Ankelade. Talk about what he brings as a deep threat for your team.
Yeah, Taron had a very good year for us, led us in receiving last year. And the thing I like about Taron is, like I talked about with Dontrell and Sherman, he's a complete receiver.
Yeah.
He can block. He doesn't make mistakes out there. He's very aggressive. Run the deep routes. He can also do a good job with just running precise routes, and he's a real leader for us at the receiver position.
He checks all the boxes too.
Yeah, he really does.
Yeah.
And for us, with being able to run the ball effectively, the big plays, to get started, the running back needs the offensive line, and the tight ends do a great job. But those big plays, you need the great blocking on the perimeter and downfield with the receivers, and Taron does that.
Speaking of tight end, you had a guy that you had 2 guys, by the way, that on the line, and I call tight end on the line as well, that missed a lot of time with injury last season. I want to talk about a couple of them, but let's start with Charles Jones a second, because I remember when CJ, the former coach, was recruiting him, he was like a must-get guy, and they landed him. He's had some injuries over his career, but what does this big fella mean for your offense?
Just like you said, he's very versatile. He can line up with his hand in the ground. He can flex out. He's a really great pass route runner and might have the best hands on our team.
Wow.
He can get in the backfield and play, that fullback move position. He's a guy that didn't play a whole lot of high school football. I think he only played his junior and senior year of football, and he's getting a little bit better every single day.
You have a couple guys on your team last year. You've inherited them.
Yeah.
But they're going to be hopefully playing on Sundays. One was drafted by the Rams, Tanzel Smart, and Nico Marley obviously is with the Redskins as an undrafted free agent. And I'm going to cut before I go defense, have you got any updates on these guys? And because I know that both teams, I know people that work for both teams, and they love them both.
Yeah.
They're both high-character guys, and they're great football players.
No, I love those guys. They work their tails off for us. Tanzel, for a defensive lineman, he might be one of the most durable guys I've ever had before. The game you talked about earlier with Louisiana Lafayette, it was 108 plays that we played on defense in that 4 overtime game, and he played 104 of them. And most 300-pounders can't do that. They can go 4 or 5 plays, and they're waving at you over there on the.
He's dancing right
out
here.
there and wanting to come out, and so he's a unique player for his size. And then Nico, what passion he brings to the game, and
perhaps as passionate as any player I've ever seen.
It really is.
I mean, seriously.
He would get on our guys the right way, had great leadership qualities, and just a fun guy to coach.
Undersized, but I will never count that guy out ever. Nico Marley was a testament for an ambassador for the Tulane Green Wave.
Yes,
now, the next guys that have to be leaders, in my opinion, I want yours because you're the coach, obviously, Ade Aruna, and obviously Perry Nickerson, another guy that seems that he's been around for a long time. But these are great football players.
Yeah, they really are. Both of those guys, we explored the draft with both of them. The NFL allows you to do that, and they kind of give you their best guesstimate on where the guy may or may not be selected. And they both chose to come back, which is great for us. I was a happy day when they decided that. Ade is another guy that hadn't played much football. He's from Nigeria originally, kind of a
97.
nice 87 right there. He's going to change his number to 1.
This year he's 1?
He's going to be number 1.
All right.
And he had not seen his parents for 7 years. They came over here a couple months ago, and they stayed for a couple weeks, and he got him acclimated to not only America but New Orleans. And he's needs to have a big year for us. He needs to fill those shoes of Tanzel, and then Perry has had just a great career at Tulane. He's got 12 career interceptions.
That's amazing. I mean,
he's second in the country in pass breakup. So 2 fine football.
He's
players.
an NFL player.
Yeah, I really think so.
Perry Nickerson's an NFL player.
Knows how to play the ball when it's in the air. Some guys panic when the ball's thrown and they're playing tight coverage. He doesn't. He's got a lot of patience and makes a lot of big plays for us.
And Willie Fritz.
Thank you, Scott.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you once again for coming on the show.
You betcha.
Hey, listen, man, there's nothing more fun in the city of New Orleans than going to the intimate Tulane Stadium, Ullman Stadium they like to call it, and I love it. The pregame's great. The atmosphere is great. The seats are great. Check out the Green Wave this season and go see Willie Fritz and all those great players we just talked about. Hey, I want to thank Pat Swilling, and I also want to give a prayer for Lowell Narcisse's grandmother. Her name, well, we talked about it earlier, Irma Jasmine. What a fantastic name. Get well, Irma. We love you. Hey, coming back next week, we're going to have Vaughn Johnson, another member of that Dome Patrol, and we have a lot more guests too, right here on Primetime Sports. We'll see you next week.